Now we have. Okay, good morning. We will wait a few more minutes, then we will start.
All right. I think we can start. We have 3 minutes past. So welcome to the public consultation on the TYNDP 2026 CBA implementation guidelines. Just to introduce myself, so my name is Philipp Fortenbacher. I'm with the transmission system operator Amprion, and I'm convening the ENTSO-E group, in which we develop, draft, and consult CBA methodologies. And the objective of today's webinar is to present the changes, improvements, the new developments that we have made with respect to the to the former implementation guidelines for TYNDP 2024. Okay, maybe you can just go to the next slide, Benedict. Yeah, this is the agenda for today. We start with a small introduction. Then I will hand over to Vera. She will show you how we tackled the new scenario framework into the CBA. Then one of our highlights is the inclusion of a climate adaptation indicator. This will be taken by Niels. And Antje will then also portray some changes that we have made with the hybrids, hybrid assessment. And before then, Mathilde will show you also some changes that we have made with the Delta NTC. And then I will also give you an update on the revision on the methodologies for the European contribution targets indicators. So that is the efficiency indicator and the renewable penetration indicator or integration indicator. And then also one of our highlight is then the inclusion of the CBAM, which is Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism, that is planned to be then also part for the TYNDP 2026. And then we will start a bit. This would be the first part of the webinar. Then we will dive into a more interactive session where we also would like to ask for your feedback on economic parameter updates, and then we will also have a discussion and a Q&A. So that's the plan for today. Maybe just the housekeeping rules. If you could just go to the next slide. Yeah, we just to be aware of, we would like to record this webinar, and it is also supposed that this will be also shared with the outside world. Then if you have questions, you can put them in the chat. There we have an Q&A tab in the Teams, so you just raise your question there, and then we will then respond then to these questions in the discussion. So that's the housekeeping rules. Then we can just start with the introduction. Yeah, this is an overview about the TYNDP. So the TYNDP consists of different steps or exercises. Once we have the scenarios, which are created together with the NSOC and NO, those scenarios will then be used for the identification of needs. This is an exercise that is also run by ENTSO-E. And we then also have project collection, and those projects will undergo a cost-benefit analysis, and the outcome, the results of these exercise is then also input for the PCI process that is hosted by the European Commission. So this is a bit overall context. So today we will report or present the CBA related stuff. So this will be then here number 4. And maybe you can just go to the next slide. We have a mandate for doing these CBAs. So this is laid down basically in the 10E, in the 10E regulation. And there we are basically responsible to craft the TYNDP, which is then also which consists of a CBA in the end. And for this, we are also mandated to draft a CBA guideline. Yeah, and this CBA guideline, this is basically are all the CBA principles in there, which then are used by the TYNDP. Then we have basically a second document that is basically derived from the CBA guideline. This will be then also shown in the next slide. This is then cycle specific, and you can just go to the next slide, Benedikt. You see that here on the left side, there you see the CBA guideline, which is now in the 4th edition, and all methodologies are laid down there, all the principles for the TYNDP, and then we derive from this the implementation guidelines. So this in this case is the TYNDP 2024. They are intended to be supplemental to the CBA guidelines. So they outline TYNDP cycle-specific aspects, and if we have potential improvements or novelties in terms of new methodologies of CBA principles, then those things are then also fed back into a new version of the CBA guideline. So what we can say, the CBA guideline lasts for a couple of cycles, whereas the implementation guidelines is then only cycle specific. That is then for in our case now for the TYNDP 2026. Yeah, all right. I think this is we have one other slide on the timeline. So how is this now in the process? So we have drafted the TYNDP implementation guidelines for the 2026. Now we are in the phase of the public consultation. We are right in the middle. So today is the public webinar. After this, we intend to integrate then also the feedback from your side, and then this will be then also the base for the cost benefit for the assessments itself. Before this will be then put in the final approval within the TYNDP package. So that's a bit the plan. So if you have also process-related questions regarding TYNDP, so we also have a colleague here that can then also react on process-related questions. So thank you, Julia, for being with us. All right, then I think we can go with the first part. This is Vera. So she will show you how we have integrated the new scenarios in the CBA. The floor is yours.
Yeah, good morning. Well, let's go to the next slide then. I'll give you a brief overview of what has changed compared to the old TYNDP 2024. I think the main differences are highlighted here. So that means that we now mainly use the national strength scenario compared to quite a few different scenarios that we used in the 2024 cycle. And then we have a lot more time horizons that we now include, including also 2050, which is a new milestone, I think. And now we have, instead of 3 climate years that we used in the 2024 cycle, we now have weather scenarios. We have 30 of those for each target year, but we use then the 3 most well suited for each year, basically. And this is also something, of course, you can read in the document. Maybe if we go to the next slide, then you see the updated table. In the old implementation guidelines, there was a similar table that I have crossed out there for readability. But of course, in the new documents, you can just read and reflect on this a little bit to see which weather scenarios go with which scenario, to reflect on that. So I think that is just a quick overview. It's more basic information there, but it's good to see that there are some changes in from climate years to weather scenarios, which I think is the biggest change. So I would say, I don't know if I give it back to you, Philip, or to the next speaker.
You can pass the token to the next one. Yeah.
And on to the next speaker.
Yeah, thank you. That would be me then. Hello, and thank you that you all joined in this meeting and showing interest in all of this stuff and the development of the indicators and the implementation guideline in general. I would like to show you now a brief overview about the inclusion of the climate adaptation measures, which I have to say that thankfully we were here strongly supported by the Renewables Grid Initiative, in short the RGI, which have together with us still developed this indicator and helped us holding specific workshops together for the public as well, inviting all of the required and interested parties to develop such kind of an indicator. And I would like to express a specific thanks to the RGI here to support us from the not the very beginning, but almost the very beginning, because in the first steps we were thinking about it, the requirement which came from the 10E regulation, and then quite after that we had the first round in the team. We were also contacting the Renewable Grid Initiative, and then we were developing this indicator together on. And I would like to give you a short overview now. If you could push the next the button, please. Yes. So here I would like to give a short motivation. Why is it needed to have climate adaptation measures as an indicator? As you all might know, in the future, climate events might become more severe and also more frequent. And this is also something that we currently see in the climate development. So there are, of course, incidents that are impacting the infrastructure, and this needs to be coped in the future even more. And what has been done basically is that the project promoters are making their assets fit for the future and for such kind of hazards. And this breaks down then basically in increased capex. And when we are then performing the assessment, the project assessment within the TYNDP, the same way as we have done it in the past. And based on these indicators that we have there, the CBA indicators, then of course we have reduced benefits, as the benefits are then weighted out by the increased costs. And yeah, this is to be seen as kind of a problem, because there is a reasoning behind this increased capex, and it comes along with a benefit. And what we would like to do with this indicator here then is to give an overview or a comparison between with and without climate adaptation measures. So to have a feeling what would be the benefit of making the projects fit for possible future climate hazards. So therefore, we are going into this direction. And let me read briefly. Needs to evaluate climate adaptation. Yeah. Basically, this is for the motivational part. And then, as we are still in the first cycle of the development of this indicator, or first application in the TYNDP, we are still relying on the input of the project promoters, because we have not yet a generalized approach where we can perform this indicator solely by ENTSO-E stuff or ENTSO-E work. And we need to get some information from the project promoters. The first and most obvious one would be the costs, of course, but this is already submitted to the TYNDP. But what we need here is the fraction of the cost that is caused by the climate adaptation measures. So what is coming, or what part of the total capex is because of this additional making the project ready for the future. And this has been then asked to the project promoter as a percentage of the capex. Then we need possible rebuild costs, because in this indicator we take the assumption that if we don't make it capable for the climate adaptation, for the climate that is coming up, and the hazards that are probably supposed to coming up, we need to rebuild costs for a damaged asset. And finally, we are asking the project promoters also for the duration of a probable outage caused by such kind of climate events. And if you can push the next button, there's a table that we are sending to the project promoters, asking them to put in here for these specific hazards, the capex, the fraction of the capex that is coming along with this adaptation. And it's what we have restricted is it to these kind of major and main climate hazards. There are, of course, more, and we could have a even longer table about on this, but these are the ones that we would like to focus in this round of the TYNDP. And you see also a short explanation and the benefit that might be coming out of this. This is also in the implementation guideline itself, so you can have a look at this. And I would like to jump now to the next slide, where I would like to give a short overview about the time frame and the whole structure, how this comes together. Basically, what we are doing now is we are here in the left side of this slide. We have the development of the climate adaptation measures. This has taken place now for the last, I think it was already 2 years now. And for this TYNDP cycle, it is the first time that we are including it in the TYNDP itself. And then afterwards, of course, we would like to refine this indicator based on the knowledge and experience that we have gained then from this TYNDP. And it might then also go into the update of the CBA guideline, which is here denoted on the right-hand side. But this is for the future up to come. For the moment, we are focusing on the TYNDP 26. And what has happened before, I already mentioned that we had a strong support by the RGI. First of all, we were developing this methodology, and we came up with an NPV approach, which I will show on the next slides. On the next slide directly. There are not so many slides up to come. So it's based on an MPV approach because we found this as a reasonable solution for coping with the uncertainties that come along with this kind of indicator, because we never know when such kind of a climate event might happen in the future. Then there was a survey sent out by the RGI together with ENTSO-E, and yeah, that was getting feedback on these indicators in general. And then we had 3 workshops held together with the RGI at the ENTSO-E premise, one in November 23, so it was even longer than 2 years of development. It was already more than, roughly 3 years then. Then we had one in March 25 and in November 25, where we got the feedback that we are going into kind of the proper direction with this indicator. That was kind of the feedback that we were getting there, and yeah, we were inviting to these workshops experts from industry, politics, and academia, and develop a common database with hazard information. That is also something that is still ongoing together with the RGI, such kind of a database. From which we were already taking some information, but this is also being further investigated and developed in the future. And before we jump into the indicator itself, I would like to show you already right now the open questions that remain, because that's kind of an important thing and might help you also in understanding then the discussion on the next slide. So the definition of the outage is kind of based on the following parameters. Of course, we need a frequency of such kind of hazards that might occur. So basically the probability, how probable is it that within the reasonable time frame of the asset's lifetime, we will have such kind of an impact. And with a climate adapted project, it might not cause any harm, but without, in our assumption, it might cause a harm then. The second one is the probability of the affection of the project. So will there be an outage, and how long this probable outage will last? And finally, also, how long does it take for the rebuild, and also the costs for the rebuild, which is also an important indicator for our formula that I'm going to show you right now. If you can push to the next slide, please. So I already told you that we were basing this on an MPV approach. So basically, this is when you have a look first, just on the green side here on the left-hand side. This is basically just the formula that we were also using for the MPV calculation within the CBA guideline. And what we were changing here is on the left-hand side, you see the NPV calculated for the project with adaptation. So the only change that we are having here is the additional costs, or basically the total project costs, which include the costs for the adaptation. So this is denoted here by the costs and a capital A. And then we are running this calculation for this, and then we're getting some value out, of course. And this is then the benefit minus the costs, and this is then the NPV of this adapted project. And a little bit more complicated, but basically, if you go step by step through this, it's also not too complicated to understand. What we were doing here is the assumption of the NPV without any adaptation. And what you see here, we also have the benefit below the sum, and we also have costs that are subtracted by the benefits, of course. The difference here at the first stage is that we have the costs with a capital B, which is the CAPEX and also the OPEX. So basically the project costs for the non-adapted project, which is then, of course, a lower, or should be a lower CAPEX. But we are then also thinking about, okay, how could we mimic kind of such an climate hazard with an outage? And we were saying, okay, we were summing this over the whole assessment period, which is the same duration that we were using in the CBA 4. It's 25 years here. And what we were doing then is saying, okay, in one of these 25 years, we were assuming an outage. And this outage is been then implemented in this formula by the factor D, which you see directly in the brackets behind the benefit, 1 minus D. So if D equals 0, then of course we have the whole benefit over the whole calculation, over the whole sum. But in case of D becomes 1, then the value in the brackets becomes 0, and then also the benefit falls out of this formula. And what we are doing then is also, so we have then kind of assumed an outage in one of the years. So then in this year, the D equals 1. What we also need then is a factor that is going to address the costs for the rebuild action. And this is then denoted in the last part of this formula, the costs with a capital R multiplied by a factor F. And this factor F is in the same year as the D becomes 1 in this example, is different from 0. So it's 1 then also. And then we also having this factor just in this 1 year over the sum. And what we are then doing is we are calculating this NPV not just for one probable outage here, because we don't know when this kind of outage might occur. It might occur in the first year, it might occur in the second, or only in the 25th year of this whole calculation. So therefore, we are calculating the NPV for each possible outage across the 25 years, which is denoted here with a capital N, so the NPV for the year N. If N becomes 1, so NPV 1 would mean that within the first year we are assuming the outage. NPV 10 would be then, the outage occurs in the 10th year. And then we are basically summing up all of these NPV 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 until 25, and then taking the mean value out of this. And that's basically then the end value that we are comparing with the NPV with a climate adaptation. And that is shown then in the very bottom of this slide. This is basically what we are doing, and you can see that a lot of quality of this indicator or this formula calculation lies within the quality of the factors that we are addressing here. So the question is, what would be D? If we say D equals 1, as I already did in my explanation, then we have an outage across the whole year. So the benefit will not be there for the whole year, but it might also be that the benefit is just not there for like a week or a month. And then we can address this by building or defining this indicator D between 1 and 0. So therefore 0.5 would mean that it's just half a year of an outage. And with this, we can play a little bit around with these values, but of course we need a good assumption of the duration of an outage, and this is kind of still an open question. And also the rebuild costs, there are lots of assumptions coming together with this indicator that we need to figure out now, especially in this TYNDP. We need to gain some knowledge to get a feeling about what would be reasonable and what might turn out going into not the proper direction. And with that, I would jump to the last slide. If you can go, please, to the next slide. There's another important notice on this indicator that it must not be seen as addition to all of the other benefits that has been calculated. So with the CBA guideline, as we used to do it in the past, and we are performing the same indicator calculations this time as well, we get a benefit that can also be calculated with an NPV approach then. But this indicator, which is also just one number in the end, is a benefit that comes to the point of, this is the benefit of adapting the project for future climate hazards. But it must not be compared with the benefit, for example, from the SEV approach, because it's by definition in a different, has a different nature. As for the other indicators, we are always comparing with and without the project. So the whole system, let's say system costs with and without the project. And what we are doing here is not with and without the project, but with and for the same project with and without the climate adaptation. So that's kind of a first difference. And then also, the benefit that comes out as one number from this indicator is already included in an NPV calculation. So it must not be directly compared to the benefits that are coming out from just one market simulation or several market simulations then. But however, this indicator also gives an important insight in what benefit could come from making the projects fit for the future, for future climate events. So that's of course something that then goes into the discussions and helps hopefully to draw a broader picture and a fuller picture of the whole project's benefits. And with that, I'm done. And if there are not yet questions, I don't know, then I would hand over to, I don't know, I think, no, I don't know. Sorry.
Antje.
Okay, to Antje then. Great.
Yeah, thanks, Niels. This was quite a journey. Don't worry. So what I have to present is much less complex. And on the homepage, you could see that we are deleting a chapter, which does not mean we are hiding anything, but quite in contrast, we just remove confusion. Next slide. So first, recall what is a hybrid project, and you know this from all the offshore position papers from ENTSO-E. You have seen these figures many times to the left. So we distinguish between infrastructure that can have single purpose, which in the left picture is either interconnection or connect this offshore radially to shore, or it can have dual purpose, which is indicated in the left picture and to the right. So this means that the infrastructure that is built is both integrating renewables to the system and also connecting countries or market zones. In the CBA, now we come to the both right pictures, we distinguish two cases. So we always look at the infrastructure, which is indicated by the lighter blue, by the turquoise color. So what we investigate with cost-benefit analysis is infrastructure only. So this is turquoise. And in contrast to what you find in the implementation guidelines and CBA guidelines as well, in this picture, the generation is in dark blue because it was kind of a bug introduced by the layout company. So, but we always only focus on assessing the infrastructure. Next slide. So this can be built either, or maybe one back, sorry. The case, two cases are, it can be that you have a radio connected project already, and you just add another leg. This is case one. Or you can, from the start, have the idea, we connect two countries and also integrate offshore wind. This would be case two. Now, next, yes. So the only thing, maybe click again. Yes, animation. What we did is simply we deleted the chapter with the sanity check as it's not needed any longer, because when these former implementation guidelines had been written, we did not know yet what we will publish. So if it's the figure including the generation benefit or without. Finally, as you can see also in the old version, in the footnote says that we publish both things. And as we publish both numbers, so with and without the generation benefit, this old chapter is not needed because full transparency is there. You get everything. And this is the reason why we deleted a chapter and therefore increase transparency actually. This was my contribution. And I hand over to Mathilde. from RTE.
Yeah. So I'm going to talk about the delta NTC calculations for TYNDP 2026. If you can move to the next slide, please. So in TYNDP 2024, the methodology for delta NTC calculations already existed in the CBA implementation guidelines, but the delta NTC were calculated by project promoters. So the novelty of this cycle is that delta NTC calculations were performed centrally within ENTSO-E by grid experts, with some remaining exemptions such as hybrids. And even though they were centrally performed, project promoters were still allowed to submit their own delta NTC values. Next slide, please. So in order for them to provide their own delta NTC values, they had to provide a proof of compliance with the methodology. And the compliance was then verified by ENTSO-E based on multiple criteria, such as the scenario that was used, the climate year used as an input, the grid model used, the consideration of the N-1 criterion, and other criteria that is detailed in the document. And after assessing the compliance, if the delta NTC value was found compliant, then it could be used if it was below the ENTSO-E calculations. That's it for me. I can hand over, I think, to Philippe.
Thanks, Mathilde. Yeah, now we are moving to the indicators for the contribution to the European energy targets. So they were also developed in the last cycle. And now we also refined a bit the methodologies and also corrected some issues that I will show now. So the first indicator is the ET2. It's called, maybe you can just go to the next slide. Is the efficiency indicator, and in the former TYNDP, we proposed or suggested to calculate the efficiency, which is basically the final energy consumptions divided by the primary energy consumption. It's basically the feed-in of the energy into the system. So it turned out that this indicator might not be that appropriate because in the end it does not really relate to the targets. So it only somehow indirectly relate to it, and we thought it's better to relate it directly. So when you see on the right hand, now we take only the primary energy consumption into account and relate that directly to targets that are set by the European Commission. So in the end, what we do, we just compare the primary energy consumption without the project, which is normally higher, right? With the primary energy consumption with the project, which is typically below, because we can integrate maybe more renewables directly, and we don't have efficiency losses along the energy system. That's why that could be lower. And if we then calculate the difference, then a positive value would then mean that we have a direct contribution to the European energy targets. So that's basically the first indicator. So and it is also the plan that we provide this indicator in the TYNDP as a supplemental indicator. Then the next indicator is the renewable integration indicator. Here we did a correction because in the former TYNDP it was like that we related the gross consumption of the energy resources to the final energy consumption. So we think that is it is better to use the primary energy consumption because that's already the input, and so we basically then treat both as inputs to the system, and this is then also given with the new indicator with the correction. And then what we then intend to do is just to take this indicator with and without the project and take the difference, and then we have any variation on this is then a contribution to the renewable integration. That's all from my side here. Now we move on to the carbon border adjustment mechanism with Benedikt.
Yeah, thanks, Philip. So my name is Benedikt English, and I'm the ENTSO-E Secretariat support to the vacuum cost-benefit analysis for the CBA. And today I want to show you how we will implement the CBAM in the TYNDP 2026. So CBAM, just as a high-level note in the beginning, is, let's say we have the ETS in Europe, and this is for third countries importing into Europe, like an additional price to be equivalent in the energy price, let's say, to or the emission price to the ETS. On the first-hand side, I would like to focus firstly on the right side, because this is about for which countries do we apply CBAM. And this is, as you can see, only for the countries marked in pink, since for them we do not see that they apply ETS. For the rest of the countries, either ETS is applied, they are aligned or expected to be sufficiently aligned in the time horizons. So affected by CBAM, it's for the moment only North Africa, Turkey, Azerbaijan, and the Middle East. For the implementation of CBAM, there are three main points, I would say. So the first is the price of the CBAM certificate. This is directly linked to the ETS price. So we align it with the ETS price for the respective time horizon. And we assume that there are no further emission costs paid in the third country. For the quantity of emissions, we use the equivalent emissions factor for the energy mix of a country. So saying, okay, which generators do we have there? What is the assumption made for emissions per megawatt hour? And then taking the average for this country. And to apply the CBAM cost, then this is done on the line itself. So we use, let's say, kind of a toll fee in euros per megawatt hour based on the price of the ETS and of the energy mix of the country, and then apply it directional. Direction in this sense means that it's only from importing from the third country to the EU and not on the way out. So I think that would be it for the short implementation of CBAM. And then I give back to Philip.
Yes, thanks, Benedikt. So now we are moving a bit on to the second part, where we also would like to get your feedback. So first topic would be, before we go to the general discussion, would be the treatment consideration of the economic parameters. And that the first one is the societal cost of carbon. So just to recall, in the TYNDP 2024, we use two sources, one from the DG Move handbook, and the other one is from the European Investment Bank. So both sources provide then low, central, and high values for the given target horizons. So now, if we are now moving to TYNDP 2026, and we have learned that we have now different target horizons, we have to adapt. Our original idea is that we then will just use those sources, but then we need to somehow accommodate for the different horizons. And so our idea would be that we just still use the both sources, also to be aligned with the ENTSO-E guidelines, and that we also update those values on Euro 2026 values, Euro values. But then we need to adjust for the horizons. And the idea would be that when we go with the 2035 horizon, that we then interpolate the existing 2030, 2040 values. The values for the 2040 could be maintained, because we have already this info. And then when it comes to 2050, there could be now two options. Either we floor it to the 2040 values, which is very, I would say, very conservative, but we could also extrapolate those values using from the two supporting years of 2030 and 2040. So that's a bit our ideas how we approach this problem. So we would then also be happy if you have ideas and that you would like to share with us if we are here on the right direction. Maybe before we can go to the discussion, we can let's go to the next one. Yeah, this is the economic lifetime and discount rate parameters. So still we use the values from the regulation. So this is from 2014, and it's still in force. So maybe it's worthwhile to think about maybe to update this. It's for the time being we are using 4% discount rate and a 25 years economic lifetime. Again, this is from the regulation. Yeah, maybe there's also an update on this, which we might then also, or which we could then also integrate in the new guidelines. Yeah, so that's basically the two things that we would like to discuss, and maybe then also make it a bit more general. We can also go to the next slide. Yeah, we are approaching the Q&A. Yeah, if you have general feedback, please let us know. Now it's time to express yourself and yeah, and to give us a bit of ideas that we can also integrate in this version. So now, yeah, we can start with the discussion. So, Benedikt, are there any questions already in the chat? Yeah.
There are some questions in the chat. I would say let's go chronological. So the first one is concerning the revised assessment definitions. What does it mean that for 2030 only a combination of projects is considered? This is the editorial changes or the overall editorial changes.
Could you share your screen and show us the questions maybe? Then I think everybody can have a look on it. Is that possible, or
do you see them also in the Q&A? I can also move them Teams meeting today, but it's just a question 32 minutes ago from Lisa from OET.
Yeah, I think I can answer this. It's basically that only for the 2030 year, not the projects on their own are considered, but just a group of projects. I think that's the main difference from the other years.
Yes, indeed. Maybe also Giulio can comment on this. There will be a special treatment for the 2030, I guess, right?
Maybe we can give the no, I'm here. I'm just trying to understand this combination of projects. Maybe we can ask Lisa to unmute, and maybe she can elaborate a little bit more.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, I'll give her. Oh, Benedikt, you're doing it. Lisa, you should be able to unmute. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. So thanks a lot, first of all, for the presentation. So I just had this question because of something what was stated on Vera's slide right at the beginning, where she was talking about revised assessment definitions. And I think this was exactly the formulation which was on the slide, that for 2030 only a combination of project is considered. And for me, it wasn't really clear what this means and what kind of projects are considered.
Vera, do we have more details on that slide, maybe to support?
Maybe you can just go back to the slide if you, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so I can quote what is exactly in the formal document. It says the market CBA is performed for all 4 target years, yes, and for 2030 only a combination of all projects is planned to be assessed. Maybe if this is not clear, we can take a note and clarify.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, so basically the 2035, 2040 and 2050 are going to be assessed in full. And then for the 2030, I think, if I understand correctly, the paragraph is a jumbo print, jumbo tooth study, meaning that all projects are in and all projects are out. But this is assessed, let's say, only for the project that will come online by 2030. So if you consider that usually we do the assessment of the CBA also for projects that come at a later stage. So it's a very theoretical exercise. So if you have a project that is coming, like say in 2042, we're still assessing it for 2040 and 2035 against that scenario. And it's kind of an what if, so to assess what would be the benefit of that project. But for 2030, we had to go for a little bit more simplified approach because it would be a 4th time horizon. So yeah, I hope this answers your question, Lisa.
I also think that the most relevant horizons are the 2035, 2040, 2050. So that's why the 2030 gets here a special consideration with the jumbo tooth or pint. But we clarify that, yeah. That's a good comment. Thanks. Then we have another question I see from Sandy. This goes maybe to Niels. NPV for adapted project is explained. How can we estimate the change in CapEx with or without adaptation?
I cannot read the question, or I don't see it.
You could also open the F&A section.
Yeah, okay. Which one was it? Climate adaptation.
The upper one.
Yeah. This basically should be in the knowledge of the project promoters, or it's kind of the project promoters should give an assumption on this. If they don't have it at hand, I know, and this was also discussed in the workshops, that this information in general is not there. So because everyone is planning the project the best way they could, they are adapting it for climate hazards, but it's not directly that, okay, I have the project like this and this costs that, and then with adaptation it costs this additional. This is not the case basically. So therefore I understand your question, but I cannot say that we can give you some advice here. For at least for the moment we don't have anything. But for the first try or first application of this indicator, we are relying here on the project promoters to come with a first indication of the costs for the climate adaptation. Does not really answer your question, but currently we don't have this information.
Yeah, should come from the project promoter. Maybe he has reasonable assumptions on this. In the end, he has to create a counterfactual. What would happen if he would not adapt it? And then you have to find, let's say, the baseline, right? So in the end, it's a bit for the time being, on the project promoter that he makes reasonable assumptions on this. Yeah, that's I think what we can say here. There's another question on climate adaptation. Maybe Niels, have you considered expanding it into the overall critical infrastructure resilience indicator, which could also include physical attacks risks?
So I don't know this critical infrastructure resilience indicator, but in general, and this is also something that was coming from MESA several times, they would like to see a more system-wide impact of this indicator. So it might go into this direction of the question. And this is something that we are discussing and also considering maybe for the future. But for the moment, we are just relying it to this application as shown. So for the moment, we stick with that as a first step, but we are open for discussion also for applying it then for a broader perspective.
Thanks, Niels.
There was another question on are different or equal treatment expected at CBA for storage, especially at the climate indicator. It's
maybe I can jump.
Yeah.
But just to make it clear, because sometimes this is a bit tricky, that the CBA methodology for storage is developed by the European Commission. So this this is set there. But yeah, if you want to expand, if someone wants to add there.
Okay, for the time being, I don't see any other questions in the chat. There are? Okay.
In the just in the comment section of my first of my first post there. So we have other common plans for all scenarios with the African single electricity market.
So, I mean, our CBA model also includes hydrogen, right? So we do have already, let's say, an integrated model with hydrogen to capture the interactions between other sectors. So is that going in that direction, or I don't see the question because
in the comment of the first post, if you see that completely down. I can see if I can. Can I give to all? Okay, I can. What we can also do is make all the participants so they can unmute, and then we can elaborate maybe a little bit more on these questions.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Okay. So I think everybody should now be able to unmute. So the question was from, check again.
Paul.
Paul.
Yeah, Paul.
I'm not sure if you can hear me.
Yes.
No. Yes. No. So now we can.
Yes, we can hear you. Yes, but I don't know. No more.
Okay, shall we then, in the meantime, go for another question?
Mm-hmm. The next one.
Now you can hear me, right?
Yeah, now we can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. So that was my question. It's a long-term scenario based on the Continental Power Systems Master Plan of the African continent. And I know it's very long-term, future-oriented one, but I know that they have plans to one day connect to the European continent. And I was just curious if there are any scenarios for very long-term orientation to include that it might become a connected electricity market one day.
So very good question. To my opinion, we already capture how are they called, the African countries, but I'm not sure how and in which depth and granularity. But maybe Giulio, you can also comment on this.
No, sure. So from a scenario point of view, we're not modeling North Africa at ENTSO-E. So if we look at just scenario building itself, this is not included. This is not in the plans, let's say, of the ENTSO-E countries, let's say, or the existing already connections. But if we look at CBA, we do have projects that do connect the North African countries, but also Middle Eastern, if you have seen in the map shown by Benedict. And in this sense, we do align with the TSOs, especially with MedTSO. With MedTSO, yeah, there's a collaboration there, and we do collect data from them. And there it is reflected what is the ambition in terms of expansion of renewables. Overall, so what is the current situation, like the current installed capacity in this sense? So probably it doesn't cover the whole African continent, but we do align with the data for the countries where we have a project by contacting the TSO through MedTSO, and vice versa. MedTSO is in collaboration with ENTSO-E, so their scenarios are also reflecting our scenarios. I hope this answers your question, Paul.
Yes, great. Thank you.
All right, then I also see one question that is related to hybrids, maybe to Antje. Is it correctly understood that in CBA case 2 for hybrids, the counterfactual will have the associated generation capacity removed from the national generation mix, as if it would not be built without a hybrid?
Would you say where this question is?
I saw it in the F&A tab.
Yeah, but there are so many. Is it?
It's again in the comment of my.
No, I have it. Okay, is it correct?
Okay.
It depends a bit. If you look into the implementation guidelines, as far as I remember, there are also for case 2. So when the vision of 2 legs plus generation connected is there, then there are sub cases or sub situations defined in the implementation guidelines, and it could be sometimes that the infrastructure is first, or it could be that the renewable plan is first, and that depends a bit on how this is calculated. But finally, as I said before, we focus on the infrastructure only, and we subtract the producer benefit in order not to overestimate the impact. So because we focus on the infrastructure only. Does that answer your question?
Not sure if
Yeah,
Maxi
in a
is
way.
still in the call.
Thank you.
Okay, good.
Thanks.
Then maybe Benedict, you can also.
Yeah, I can go for it. So the next one is about CBAM. About the CBAM applied to North Africa, Middle East, and Turkey countries. You notice the absence of ETS in those countries. However, several of them are considering the implementation of similar mechanisms. The situation in Turkey is the most advanced on this topic, but maybe Emmanuel, if you wanna take over directly, then please feel free.
Thank you so much. So yeah, I'm Emmanuel Buet from RT, but I'm also chairman of the technical part of technical committee of for scenario building in ENTSO. So first, I want to thank Giulio for his point about the integration of North Africa and Middle East. So yes, we have a cooperation agreement between ENTSO and ENTSO-E, and then for the CBA phases, we as ENTSO provide to ENTSO-E the full model of all the North Africa countries from Morocco to Egypt, but also Middle East. So including, I mentioned Israel because there is a connection, Israel, Cyprus, but all Middle East country. Regarding the rest of Africa, we also consider as a border condition. So for example, we have Sudan that is connected to Egypt, but also Saudi Arabia that is connected both to Egypt and to Jordan. So I guess we cover that. So in terms, I don't want to make any special promotion of ENTSO today, but the point is that we are now publishing our master plan for 2030 and 2040, and also the scenario report is also available. So I invite you to go on ENTSO website, and then I guess you can find all the questions you can have on the scenarios that are considered by ENTSO-E for the CBA assessment. Yeah, about CBAM, I have several comments. The first one is about which country to be applied, because you mentioned a map. Maybe you can come back to this map where you point which country. Yes, and in orange we have countries that are out of applying ETS. However, I have to mention that the reason for having a CBAM in Europe is first to promote other countries also to have a ETS like mechanism in their country, because that ETS model is a important support for carbon reduction, energy transition, waste reduction, etc., etc. And in conclusion of that, several of the countries you are mentioning here in pink color are seriously considering having a ETS-like mechanism in their country. And I mentioned here Turkey because probably it is the most advanced country working on that. So the situation you show here is the situation of today, but since we are talking about 2030, 2040, 2050, I think it would be maybe even a bad signal to consider that those countries will be still out of any ETS mechanism, because it is their objective as well. So that is my point about that signal that could be against the general motivation for having a CBAM. My other point is about applying CBAM in only one direction, that is import. So it is true that the CBAM is to tax electricity imported from out of Europe when there is no ETS mechanism in those countries. But here we are talking about CBA. CBA is something else. CBA is to report, especially in the SEW, social economic welfare, the value of CO2 that is affected by new transmission projects. So we have a corridor, for example, between Greece, Bulgaria, and Turkey. And if we apply CBAM only in one direction, that is import, then if you consider that, for example, the situation that is very common in our simulation, where Greece will export surplus of renewable to Turkey, consequence of that is that Turkey will reduce its coal generation or gas generation. And then there is an induced reduction of CO2. Ignoring cost of CO2 in Turkey or applying CBAM only in one import direction, then you will ignore the economic value of CO2 that is induced in Turkey. So we are missing a part of the benefit of new interconnection between Europe and non-Europe if CBAM is applied only in one direction. So that point I think is very important, because probably it's the philosophy of the CO is to consider CO2 emission reduction anywhere they occur. Even if it is not in Europe, it is CO2 emission reduction. It has to be addressed.
Well, maybe can I react on this? Thanks for your comment. Actually, so in the SU, we already consider an ETS scheme, because in the end, in Europe, because we do a market simulation, right? And we also have there the input of the CO2 price for the marginal cost when you calculate the marginal cost for the units, for the generation units. So in this sense, the CBA already considers in the SU already the ETS. So it is basically part of the CBA. And maybe one other thing. So we have different parameters, right? So we have also, let's say, a European parameter where we also then account for CO2 savings that would maybe have occurred in another country, like Turkey, for instance. So we keep track of this. And if we only tax one direction, so the other direction is still open, right? So we can still export renewables from Greece to Turkey. So this is not like we do not hinder that, and this will be fully considered in the scope of the CBA. But in the end,
I see. But to be very precise, so in the model we set generation cost of CCGT generation, for example. These costs include fuel cost and CO2 cost. So that is what we do in Europe. But in your plan, what you are planning to do for CCGT in Turkey? Do you also consider the same CO2 cost?
There we only do the fuel price, and then the importing. Well, if they export, then we price that. So it's basically a bit similar, right? In the end, but we do not double counting, right? We do not anticipate an ATS price in Turkey. This we do not.
Okay, so how to monetize the reduction of CO2 that occur in Turkey in that case?
Because when you look at the full perimeter, we are looking at how much the CO2 has been reduced. So if you see at the results, they're divided by perimeter. So there's EU27, there's ENTSO-E perimeter, and there is the full perimeter, and then you compare with the CBA methodology, and then like you see first run with or without, depends, and then the other simulation you do the comparison, and you see the difference in CO2 emissions, and then this can be monetized as Philippe was saying, in the different indicators.
And we also have a second indicator, that is the CO2 societal cost of carbon, right? And there you also would see this in the full parameter, that you have a CO2 reduction. So we also account, we also monetize CO2 and also express that or report that in terms of quantity. So in terms of emission. So we keep track of this.
Okay, so the CO2 quantity is considered.
Yeah.
Yes, even if it is out of Europe, and then you multiply that quantity by CO2 cost, and then you have CO2 emission value. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. My last point is about to apply the CBAM as a constant value toll fee and not hourly dependent. I'm thinking
but this
about
is the case because I understand this. This is the case, but we cannot predict because it's a sticky value. No, the Commission has done the proposal. Well, not the proposal, but what is in force is a sticky value of 5 years average. Now, to be understood if it's a rolling 5 year or if it's a static 5 year, but we will see that. In 2027, probably when we will see the first payments of this CBAM, but to be able to forecast what will be the energy mix and who will be producing in that specific hour of 2040 or 2050, it's impossible. So the assumption here is to use the ETS price as CO2 cost, because it's the best assumption we can do for 2040 and 2050, assuming the two prices will converge.
I see. However, I have to mention, because we are in close discussion with concerned countries, that those countries are considering the guarantee of origin mechanism as a way to flag renewable electricity to avoid having to pay the CBAM. So in case, so that probably one of the most advanced country about that is Morocco, and flagging race generation in Morocco, or excess of renewable in Morocco to be exported to Spain as green generation, and then would not have to pay the CBAM. So it's still on discussion. It's still on discussion, but that makes sense because yes. So in that case, raise generation from North Africa would not have to pay that CBAM.
Yeah, the regulation does consider some exceptions. These are, I think there's 5 cases of this, and they all have to be applied. So it has to be to the project that has to define this, mainly to the PPAs, the direct physical link, or the proof of non-congestion that has occurred. The electricity has to be nominated to implicit allocation. So this can be only done at a project level specific, not to the exports of a full country. So if a project in TYNDP can demonstrate this, then it's a different story. But there's 2 approaches to the CBAM. Let's say as of today, the taxation that we have discussed, and there's also this. To avoid the CBAM, you have to respect a certain list of characteristics.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for your answer. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your questions. So what I wanted to say, also to remind you, is we also have a consultation with the questions, and it would be good if you also take part on this consultation, and also the things concerned to CBAM. We also have a question on that, so it would be good then. If you could also provide your concerns, your ideas into that we then also can incorporate and react on. So that would be highly appreciated. Thanks for that. So we have only 10 minutes. So is there 5 questions?
There are 4 questions. There's going to be some questions are left. The first one is allocation rule for congestion rent benefits in the CUB1 indicator. Specifically, are benefits attributed more to the importing country, since congestion rents arise from the price differential between interconnected nodes?
So here, I would say congestion rents, we split by half. I think this also reflects a bit the situation when it comes to transmission right allocation or auctioning, right? Auctioning. And I think there the rents are also shared among the countries. And that's why we go for a 50-50 rule. But happy to hear if you have another view on that. Maybe also, yeah.
Yeah. Hi, Philip. I'm Rohit from Airgrid. We talked 2 months ago. So yeah, it was just like asking about the congestion rent in a way, like if the flows are going to a third country, will that be like attributed equally, like 50-50 from like importing to exporting country?
Yeah. So this is for fairness reasons. We should do that, and we should not treat other countries, also like third countries, differently. So yes, it should be 50-50. And we can also argue if you have like benefits that go along a third country, then they also need to pass that flow through that country, right? So they should also get a benefit from this, because it is their grid is also used for transporting energy from one country to another. So in the end, I think a 50-50 percent share is fair, and we apply this for all countries.
Yeah, maybe like we can follow up like on this like separately, but yeah, thanks for answering the question.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
Thanks. Do we have another one?
Yes. Is the 25-year economic lifetime mentioned apply to all projects, including pumped hydro storage with an economic lifetime of 50 to 100 years?
So we applied 25 years for transmission infrastructure, because this is basically our this is our mandate. So with the storage, there's also like from the European Commission and guidelines for assessing storage. I'm not sure how is that there, but maybe we should also distinguish between economic lifetime and technical lifetime. Also, our infrastructure, transmission infrastructure, is also stays for longer, right, than 25 years. But here, we are purely looking at the economic lifetime.
If there's no reaction, then we can go to the next one. Regarding climate adaptation indicator, when will the input from the project promoter be asked, or was it asked in the project submission phase?
Maybe Niels, or I can also, if Niels is not any longer with us, I can also take that.
I think you know it better than me.
Okay, yeah. So it was not asked, but the idea is to ask for this. There will be, I think, maybe Julio help me if I'm right, but there will also be another another survey on the project collection, and maybe we can ask this then also in this regard. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. We will have 2 updates. I would say not call them updates, but we will have to collect the project level indicators from the promoters. This is also last cycle we did it. So we'll have to open a window there, and then we will also have an open window before the PCI and PMI process from the commission starts. So that promoters can submit their project to PCI and PMI, and they can also update a few not parameters but fields there before sending to the commission. So this would not impact the CBA, but only the PCI PMI process.
Okay, I think that's clear. Thanks. Then we have still one left.
One is left, yes. Does interconnecting projects connecting EU countries to onshore as and non-EU countries considered as a hybrid project? This is the last question, as I can see for now.
Who wants to take it? I can take it if you want.
Yeah,
we can complement. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I cannot wait. I wanted to read it again. As of today, the hybrid project have to consider 2 elements. There has to be a generation function and an interconnection function. This means that to have the interconnection function, the project has to connect to the local grid of the non-EU country as well. So this is from let's say a definition point of view, and you can also refer to the TYNDP 2026 guidance for applicants for the definitions. On top of this, there is also the definition from the European Commission towards the PMIs. And from what has been done in the previous PCI PMI process, these projects were not eligible for the PMI label because they were not connecting to the local grid. But it's a question that probably should be asked to the Commission also for this cycle. So I can only refer to what was their answer last cycle. I cannot say what is in this cycle, but for the moment, this is the understanding.
Yeah, it would be also good to have this question maybe then in the consultation questionnaire, and that then also you could raise that question along this process that this is not lost.
Maybe
All right.
just a small correction. Also, the project does not have to have a generation function, but a connection of generation function, because the project itself it's two projects. We have unbundling. We have infrastructure and we have generation, and we look only at infrastructure, but we connect infrastructure just to avoid confusion.
That's true, Antje.
That's very good. Thanks, Antje. That's our definition. All right, good. So I think then we went through all the questions.
I think one just came in. Again, on the economic lifetime for pump hydro. If you use 25 years economic lifetime for pump hydro, then the annual costs of the storage in the CBA will be too high. I don't know if this is a question or just a statement.
Yeah, but in the end, we should also create a level playing field, right? It should be then also, I mean, we should also compare those solutions with other infrastructures. So, yeah, but I think
this is set by the Commission, no?
It's set by the Commission.
Set by us.
Yeah, exactly. So this is the last slide I presented. It is based on a regulation, the 25 years. All right. So then I think we can close this. So once again, I would like to remind you that you also should take part on the consultation. There we have a lot of questions, and yeah, please make your contributions, and then we can also react on this. Yeah, thank you for your attendance. So in case of any questions, reflections, then just please do not hesitate to reach out to us. Yeah, we will remain at your disposal. Have a nice rest of the day. Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you for the useful presentation.